Picture a building that blushes at dawn. Red brick, white trim, a clock tower that keeps perfect time, as if mercy itself ran on schedule. The brochure calls it a retreat. The townspeople call it progress. And E calls it a miracle, because that's what her mother promised when the carriage rattled up the gravel drive and the iron gate sighed open like a mouth. Inside, everything is choreography. Paths combed smooth. Lawns shaved to velvet. Windows arranged so sunlight falls like a benediction on polished floors. A nurse with neat handwriting says, "Welcome," and folds ES name into a ledger fat as a family Bible. Diagnosis: exhaustion of the nerves. Treatment: moral care. The words feel clean, laundered, trustworthy. Somewhere beyond a hedge, a fountain whispers. Somewhere above the entrance, a motto in Latin chases the eye toward heaven. E notices the first hairline crack almost at once. A keyring that clangs louder than it should. A door that shuts with 2 turns, not 1. A smile that never quite reaches the eyes. But the building, the beautiful building, keeps insisting. It insists with arches and symmetry, with promenades and tasteful restraint, that goodness lives here. That suffering has been dressed, at last, in something worthy. Visitors are guided through the good rooms. The chapel with its hushed, self-satisfied echo. The library where the same 3 books stand in identical formation every week. The day room where chairs face outward like obedient soldiers. Mothers leave donations. Fathers leave signatures. The superintendent thanks them with a grip that says both gentleman and gatekeeper. The city newspaper prints a column praising modern mercy. No ink spared for the basement. When night arrives, the architecture changes tone. Corridors grow longer. Doors shrink. Keys multiply. The floorboards carry sound in strange directions. Footsteps that approach from everywhere and nowhere at once. A nurse lifts ES wrist, counts, writes. Another slides her wedding ring into a drawer. It lands with a soft, practiced clink of routine. E is handed a nightdress the color of surrender. On the wall, a pastoral painting no one can meet for long. Listen closely and the building speaks its first truth. Not with words, with sequences. The way every lock answers the same command. The way windows open to air but not to exit. The way time is portioned like bread. Wake, wash, swallow, work, watch, whisper, weep. In the ledger, a tidy note. Sleeping poorly, a just regimen. In the hall, the lamps are trimmed low to teach the eyes obedience. At dawn, the fountain whispers again. The clock rings progress. The facade resets to innocence, stately, calm, righteous. And E, who arrived yesterday to be rested, understands the trick. The beauty is not a promise. It is a permission slip. It tells the town, the donors, and the doctors a comforting story so no one has to ask a harder question. E learns the arithmetic of her new world before she learns its rules. 1 patient equals £1 a week. 1 signature equals 1 year. 1 diagnosis equals a locked door. Behind every prayer for healing lies a ledger line, neatly drawn in black ink. The asylum is not just a hospital, it is an industry. The law says every county must build one. The county says every bed must be filled. And so the system expands, not because suffering multiplies, but because profit does. The more madness exists, the more salaries are paid, the more journals are published, the more reputations rise. Madness is not treated here. It is manufactured. ES mother signed her away for nervous complaints. Another girl arrived because she refused a marriage. A widower's daughter came because she laughed at the wrong time in church. A farmhand was committed because he drank. The asylum's catalogue of illness is simply the catalogue of society's disobedience. And once a name is entered in the ledger, the building swallows it whole. The superintendents know how to dress this business in the robes of science. They speak at conferences of moral treatment. They publish in journals with phrases like therapeutic crisis and restorative discipline. They show visitors the chapel, the garden, the carefully staged patients walking in obedient circles. They do not show the locked wards where bodies are stacked on straw. Money divides the suffering. The wealthy purchase private wings, fine meals, parlors with pianos, the illusion of gentility. The poor are warehoused in wards where 50 sleep in one room, each on a lice-ridden mattress. The profits from the poor fund the privileges of the rich, and the cycle continues. The physicians live in mansion houses on the same grounds, their children educated at the county's expense, their gardens lush while patients starve on gruel. Every discharge is bad business. Recovery means an empty bed. Compliance, not cure, becomes the measure of success. A patient who can be made docile is worth more than a patient who leaves. Families are told, she is improving, while new invoices arrive. Letters home are intercepted. Visitors are screened. The truth is hidden not just by brick and mortar but by paper and ink. And the towns around these palaces of pain? They cheer the boom. An asylum means jobs, prestige, civic pride. Mayors cut ribbons, churches bless the halls, newspapers sing of progress. No one asks why the population of madness has exploded tenfold in a single generation. Does the math in her head at night. One diagnosis equals one fortune. One signature equals one disappearance. And her body, her fear, her silence, all of it is just another entry in the asylum's endless accounts. Morning in the asylum is not a sunrise, it is a command. Keys jangle, doors slam, boots scrape the floor. Patients are pulled from straw mattresses, stripped, scrubbed with carbolic soap until skin burns, and handed identical gowns the color of surrender. The building runs like a factory, and every body inside is raw material. Learns quickly. Silence keeps you standing. Speak out of turn, and you are punished with therapy. The word treatment is a costume stitched to hide the truth. A spinning chair that whirls until vomit stains the floor is called centrifugal therapy. Ice baths that steal the breath from your chest are called hydrotherapy. Straps that cut into wrists and ankles are tranquilizing devices. The cruelty is renamed, rebranded, and published in journals as if language itself could wash away the blood. Doctors parade through the wards with notebooks, followed by eager students. They prod, poke, and comment as if examining livestock at auction. Melancholia, one says. Moral insanity, another writes. A woman who weeps too often is declared hysterical. A man who prays too loudly is declared delusional. Each label earns its place in the system's hierarchy of control. At midday, the patients are marched to work, men to the fields, women to the sewing rooms. This is not rehabilitation. It is free labor that keeps the asylum solvent, coal shoveled, kitchens stocked, uniforms stitched. Those who collapse are carried not to care but to solitary confinement. The cell is 6 feet by 8, with no window and no toilet. Time is the only occupant, and it gnaws at the mind until screams become whispers, whispers become silence. The instruments of restraint are displayed with pride. The crib, a wooden cage bed that locks a patient flat on their back. The straitjacket, pulled tight until fingers turn blue. The quieting chair, where straps hold head, arms, and legs immobile for hours. Superintendents publish diagrams of these devices in medical journals as evidence of innovation. They call it progress. Patients call it hell. Tastes the machinery herself. One day she refuses food. By nightfall she is wrapped in wet sheets and bound until her breath comes shallow. The attendants smile thinly, noting how quiet she has become. In the ledger, improvement observed. She realizes the machine does not simply punish resistance, it recycles it. Every scream, every tear, every protest becomes fresh proof of illness, fresh justification for more treatment. The asylum thrives because it does not need to cure. It only needs to continue. Each day is identical. Wake, wash, work, weep, wait. The machine feeds on the living, grinding them down into silence, compliance, vacancy. And the cruelest trick of all? Outside the walls, the townsfolk applaud its efficiency. The asylum era ended on paper long before it ended in truth. By the mid-20th century, governments announced deinstitutionalization. The gates were unlocked, the wards emptied, and the grand Victorian shells were sold to developers. Some became universities, others hotels, others luxury apartments. Tour guides now gesture toward Gothic arches and polished staircases as if stone can forget what screams once soaked it. But step inside on a quiet evening, and the silence feels thick, as though memory itself clings to the walls. For survivors, there was no clean exit. Many left with scars that never healed, burn marks from therapeutic packs, trembling hands that never stilled after tranquilizer chairs, minds dulled into blank obedience by lobotomies. Families often refused to take them back, ashamed or unprepared. A system built to disappear people succeeded too well. When the walls opened, many found there was no world waiting for them. E.S. story, whether she survived, whether she escaped, whether her name was ever spoken again, is a shadow lost in thousands. The archive lists her only as female, age 22, exhaustion of the nerves. No release date. No cause of death. Just a line in a ledger, forgotten except for the building that outlived her. And that is the echo. The people vanished, the prophets counted, the architecture repurposed, and the story rewritten as progress. But the logic that built the asylums never died. It only changed its uniform. Today, solitary confinement in psychiatric units is defended as safety. Forced medication is justified as compliance. Conversion therapies masquerade as cures. Insurance companies still calculate that treatment is too costly, while private hospitals still profit from indefinite commitments. The vocabulary is modern, the facades are cleaner, but the machinery of disposal remains. The most haunting truth is not that doctors once believed brutality was medicine. It is that society allowed them to believe it, applauded them for believing it, and rewarded them for proving it on human flesh. The beautiful lie always needed an audience willing to be comforted. Progress was the mask. Profit was the motive. Human beings were the raw material. And now the buildings stand as monuments to denial. Grand, impressive, respectable. Tourists take photographs in front of windows once barred, not knowing what hands once beat against the glass. But if you listen, if you dare listen, you will hear what the architecture cannot erase. The echo of keys, the splash of ice water, the faint rattle of restraints, the soft, endless plea to be seen as human. That echo is not history. It is a warning.